Welcome back, folks, for a new episode of Leaked. Now, before we start, the second iteration of the 9.6 test server is now live. You can test out the AMX CDC and the SDA too, so go have fun. But they removed the AMX 1357 for other reasons, I don't know. So that's a bummer, alright. But I wasn't too late on the leak video for the 57, so it was all planned, alright. But for today's video, I'll discuss an early prototype to the T-54, model 1945. So the T-54 started mass production in 1947, but this model of the T-54 is basically a prototype with the T-54's hull armor and a T-44's turret on top with a 100mm gun. So basically, it's like everyday or every man's Type 59, so to speak. It will be available to be purchased in the gift shop all year round, I think. So it's like every man's Type 59. It doesn't get preferential matchmaking, however, so that's kind of a downside. And according to the developers, it is like a Super Pershing. That's what they said. But in my opinion, it's better than a Super Pershing, obviously. So here's a little history about the T-44 and the T-54 because this tank is right in the middle. So historically, with the T-44, you have a small turret and an 85mm gun. The 100mm gun is found on the T-44, but way later. So initially, it has an 85mm gun, and the gun was insufficient, so it was not that good, obviously. They test out the 122mm and another 85mm with a bigger turret. So the 122mm can only carry up to 24 rounds, and the rounds were big and the turret is small, so everything is cramped, and that idea was scrapped. So nothing came out of the T-44 122, so that idea was crap. They test out the 85mm with the bigger turret, and once they test out the bigger turret, they noticed that they could fit the 100mm gun from the ZiS-100 onto it. So alright, let's do that. So no more with the 85mm gun. So that came out the T-44A, and the 100mm gun was pretty good. They liked the tank. They added sideskirts, they added the DShK. Pretty good tank. They liked it. Tests were good. Yeah, it's a pretty good tank. But only around 2,000 T-44s were produced. So it was the same time the development of the T-54 was put into test. So let's talk about the T-54. Now initially, the T-54 is based off of the T-44 improvements, so based off the T-44A and the T-44B. So here is the T-54-1. It comes with the T-44-ish turret, so like the rounded turret as you see on the T-34-85, so kind of like the oval shape instead of the dome shape. So quite alright. They still like the mobility, still like the armor. Alright. Now they fitted a rounded turret like they modeled after the IS-3. So they were producing IS-3 at the same time. So they like the turret of the IS-3. It's just like, we could put a rounded turret on it and that would be cool. So here is the T-54-2. Now afterwards they put nuclear protection programs and other stuff like better radio, infrared searchlights and other junk, you know, good stuff onto it. And that came out the T-54A and the T-54B. So they test out smooth bore and rifle bore also. So different tests, different models. But the T-54, it was very popular. I think it's the most produced tank throughout human history. Like, was it 85,000 to 100,000 of them were made? And Israelis were fighting these since the beginning of the Ice Age, you know, with their Centurions and Pattons. They're fighting the T-54s and T-55s. You know, this tank was heavily produced. It got exported to Afghanistan, to the Middle East, to China. China copied it. Or didn't... Wait, that's another story. That's another interesting story. Because during that time, China and Russia were not on good terms with each other. So the Russians never want to share their build for the Type 59, and basically they never shared their copy. And basically what happened is, quick history, So the Russians sunk one of their transport crews, or sunk one of their tanks, because they don't want the Chinese to copy it. It was the T-54. The Chinese actually dove into the river, pulled that tank out, and copied it, and produced the Type 59. So it's another history for another time. But as it stands, the model 1945 version of the Type 50, I'm getting confused, the T-54 is actually basically a T-54's hull armor with a T-44's turret. So I might be wrong on this. So it's basically a T-44A, that's historically being history, I guess, or T-54-1 if you're a history buff. I'm not. I'm just going off my brain. All right. So it's an everyday man's Type 59, if you will. All right. And here are the in-game models for the T-54 prototype. As you can see, it's not textured, so just imagine a T-54 with a T-44's turret. That's all you have to do. It's so simplistic. Serb wants to make money. Give me more money. Alright. But, yeah, it's Russian. It looks Russian. Everything looks Russian. Slope armor at the front, rounded turret, it's Russian. So you immediately recognize it from the other, T-54 clones, like the T-54 lightweight, the Type 59s, the WZ-131s, the WZ-132s, the WZ-120s. Oh my gosh. So many clones. Attack of the clones. Alright. But it has the T-54 frontal hull armor, so 120mm. It will bounce pretty much all Tier 8 guns other than tank destroyers. So very bouncy front. And the turret is actually better than the T-44. It has 180mm at the front. These have 120, I think. 120 or 130, one of the which, but still better turret front. So that's very good. Very, very good. Apparently from the picture, it cost 11,600 gold. That might not be final. That might be a placeholder. So, I don't know yet. I don't know the exact price of this tank, but it's going to be a premium tier 8. So here are the stats. Now, at best, you can hope for this tank to cost around 7,000 gold, like the Super Purging or the AMX CDC, the Panther 88 L71, one of the which, so at best. But the worst will be around 11,000 gold, like the T-34-3, the Chinese copy of the, a bunch of other copies. So, alright. It has 1,300 hit points, which is average-ish, Russian average-ish. It's like the T-34-2, the Chinese version at tier 8. Not really a Chinese version, but close. So hit points wise, it's not the best. Not like the Centurion or the Panther 2, so it doesn't have that much health, but it's alright. Engine is 520 horsepower. Classic. I recognize this number for the Russians as well as the Chinese. So, alright. Power to weight ratio is about 15 horsepower per ton, or 14 with equipment fitted. It's not the fastest, but think about it this way. The T-54 has about, I think was 17-ish. The T-62A has around 16-ish. So 14-ish is not that bad. We'll compare this later, but it's not that bad, trust me. Top speed is 44 kilometers per hour, which is mediocre, average, alright. Reverse is 18 kilometers per hour, which is okay. Ultra reverse is 42 degrees per second, good, alright. Terrain resistance is 1.05 for hard, 1.15 for medium, and 1.8 for soft. It's mediocre. It's like the T-44, which is good. It's not the greatest, but still decent. Turret traverse is 41.7 degrees per second, which is good. View range is 380 meters, which is good. Russian, you could ask for 400, but that's borderline American, so 380 is good. Radial range is good, 700 meters. Hull armor is the same as the T-54, 120 at the front, 90 at the sides, about 45 at the rear. Turret armor is 180 at the front, 120 at the sides, and 100 at the rear. So pretty well armored, in my opinion. The gun is 100mm. It's a copy of the Su-100's gun. Alright, it has 250 damage per hit. It penetrates 175mm. It fires about 7-8 rounds per minute with the gun rammer and vents, which is okay. DPM is about 2000 damage, which is average amongst tier 8s, so I couldn't complain. Alright, so reload time is a bit around 7.5 seconds or so. Accuracy is okay, 0.36, not the best, but not that bad. You usually will be up somebody's face with this gun, so accuracy is not that important, but still decent. Aim time is kinda slow, 2.5 seconds or so this is kinda bad, but with vertical stabilizer is not that bad, so it's alright. It's Russian. Gun depression is Russian, 6 degrees, so yeah, it's good in my opinion. It's better than the T-44, but T-44 has a little bit more mobility at the cost of armor, so that's how you have to think about this tank. Alright. And here's a little comparison between the T-44 and the T-54 prototype. So basically the armor is way better on the T-54 prototype because you have 120mm at the front instead of 90mm. Way better. The turret front is 180 on the prototype instead of 120, so way better. Side armor is also better, 90 instead of 75, and on the turret is 120 instead of 100. So armor on this prototype is actually way better. Now let's look at the DPM, other stuff. So penetration is the same, alright. Damage is the same. DPM is the same, so alright, that's pretty good. Now, I don't know the shell velocity and the amount of ammo carried, but I expect to be near the same, so that's actually pretty good. Accuracy is not as good as the T-44, it was 0.36 instead of 0.33, so you can still go up to somebody's face and face hug, whereas with the T-44 that is not as reliable. So alright, aim time is also not as good, but alright. It has 1 less degrees of gun depression than the T-44, but I'm willing to sacrifice it for a bunch of armor, so that's alright. Power to weight ratio is not as good as the T-44. Yeah, 14 in comparison to 20. Yeah, it's kind of slower than the T-44, but you're trading that for armor. Remember, you have very good armor for a premium medium tank, and you can face hug, so that's 14 is not bad. 14 power to weight ratio is not bad. Alright, chassis traverse is not as fast, it's 2 less degrees per second. Alright, let's look at the gun traverse. The gun traverse is also not as fast, but 42-ish is not that bad also, so alright. Terrain resistance is on par, so it's pretty much the same, so still mobile, still very mobile. It's actually better in soft terrain resistance than the T-44. That's actually quite good. Now, I'm wondering how bad is the power to weight ratio in comparison to stuff like the Super Pershing, because the Super Pershing power to weight ratio is god awful. So yeah, the Super Pershing has about 9.7-ish because of equipment and stuff. So yeah, it's way mobile than the Super Pershing. So don't believe the developers of thinking this tank should be played like a Super Pershing. You don't have to. You have better power to weight ratio than a Super Pershing, and more reliable armor because Super Pershings get penetrated with a superior cupola, whereas for the T-54 prototype, you have a rounded cupola, so it's harder to penetrate the top of the turret. And the side armor is also god awful on the Super Pershing, whereas on the side armor for the T-54 prototype, you have 90mm instead of 75 or 50, so you can actually side scrape. So yeah, it's way better as Super Pershing. Alright, but Super Pershing is cheap. It's cheap as chips. Alright, now about the power to weight ratio, I think this tank should be around the same as the Centurion, because the Centurion doesn't have that good of a power to weight ratio, about 17, 16-ish. So it's still mobile, so you can still brawl, but it doesn't speed up as fast. So you can use the armor, so be aware. So go support heavy tanks pretty much. So you're not as mobile as the T-44. Let's look at the T-34-2. I was about to say T-34-85. That's not even on par. So yeah, it's about around the same ballpark as the Chinese. Let's look at the Type 59. Yeah, it's pretty much a little bit better than the Type 59. What do you have to complain? The Type 59 is pretty much mobile, in my opinion. It has a little bit better. So don't doubt the power to weight ratio on this tank. It's not that bad. It's mobile. It's not as slow as a Super Pershing, obviously. So don't doubt it. Alright, let's go back to the T-44. I hate looking at this list. Click. Switch. Go back to... Okay, there we go. Nah. So let's look at the gun, or look at the accuracy. Well, I'm not looking at 122. Alright, so accuracy is not that good. Aim time is not that good. Already talked about mobility, so it's not as good. It has the same health, which is alright. View range is the same. Radio range is only 60 meters less, so it's not that bad. Alright. It has the same matchup, so it gets normal matchmaking. Now, what is interesting is that new premium tanks introduced have normal matchmaking. None of them will get preferential matchmaking anymore. And Wargaming is thinking about removing all tanks with preferential matchmaking from the gift shop and making them like special tanks to be bought during holidays or something like that. So yeah, that goes to the IS-5. The D25T on that tank got buffed from 175 millimeter to 225 millimeters of penetration. So the IS-5 will see up to tier 10s now, so it's not getting the preferential matchmaking. Whereas for tanks like the IS-6, the T-14 at tier 5, all tanks with preferential matchmaking, I think, will be removed from the gift shop. So that's kind of weird. Alright, but it is a preferential tank, so it will make a lot of credits if you manage to penetrate stuff like the tier 10s. So, alright. Now, does this tank get APCR as its premium ammo? So if it gets the same type of APCR, it has about 235 millimeters of penetration, which is decent against stuff like the tier 10's side armor. So if it gets heat shells like its brother, the T-54 model 1947, or the normal T-54, that might have excellent penetration, but I think it will get APCR instead. So, alright. And final opinion about the T-54 model 1945 prototype is that it's a pretty good tank. Now, if it does get preferential matchmaking, I think it will be better than the Type 59, but it does not. So, alright, I can live with that. But if you do manage to penetrate a tier 10, you'll get a lot of credits and bonus and stuff. So, that's always good. But this tank is very good in my opinion. It's certainly better than a Super Pershing because the armor has very good frontal plate, very good turret armor, so that's always nice. And it has to rely on the armor, whereas for the Super Pershing, some people might be able to penetrate the top of your space armor and easily kill you. And the cupola is also pretty huge, so the Super Pershing's armor is not as reliable because it's space armor, whereas for this tank, it's actual slope armor. Reliable, so you know when you should use your frontal armor against like tier 8s or tier 7s, and know when you should just run away. Whereas for the Super Pershing, hell, you might even be able to bounce a few like BL-10 shots from like Object 704s, so you might get lucky, but sometimes you might not, so you cannot rely on the armor of the Super Pershing. And this tank is actually faster, so what's not to like? Alright, it has side armor, you can side scrape, it has good frontal armor, it has good frontal turret armor, gun depression is not that bad, the gun is average amongst tier 8s with 175 millimeters of penetration, so it's average of tier 8, alright, so it's not that bad. mobility is good-ish. It's better than the Type 59. So there's nothing bad to complain. Now, if this tank costs around 11,000 gold, would I buy it? If I have the gold, I probably would get it. It's pretty good. Now, I think it's better than the T-34-3 because the armor and the gun's more reliable with more accuracy and about the same penetration. So, yeah, it's more reliable than the T-34-3. So, in the end, if it costs 11,000 gold, is it the best tier 8 premium medium tank? Ooh, that's a debatable question because the super Pershing is not that good. The CDC has yet to prove itself because the armor is not that good, but it's super mobile. The T-34-3 is alright. The gun's not that reliable, but it does punch pretty hard. The Type 59 is very good, but you cannot get it anyways. So what other premium tier 8s can we see? The Panther 88mm L71. No. The SDA2. No thanks. Nope, I prefer this one over those two. What about the T95E2, the one for recruiting a bunch of players? Let's see, the armor is actually pretty good on this tank because it's pretty well sloped, but it's not as good as 200mm effective on the front, obviously, and has a giant cupola, the tumor on the head. So, DPM is about the same. Penetration is only 2mm less. Damage is 10 HP less. Accuracy is about the same. Aim time is about the same. Mobility is about the same. It's better than T95E2. Alright, what else can we compare? Yeah, there's nothing else. So pretty much, it might be the best premium tier 8 medium tank. So leave a comment below and let me know what you think about this tank, because I think it might be the best tier 8 premium tank. It might go hand to hand against the Type 59 because the Type 59 has preferential matchmaking, but going toe to toe, I prefer this tank, obviously. So yeah, that's my 2 cents about it. But thank you guys for watching this video, and hope you guys enjoyed it. So you can see the changes to the T-44 from 85mm gun. Ugh, that gun looks disgusting. Well, he kills a lot of people with it, so he got lots of marks of excellence. But the gun barrel is so it's so inadequate. Yeah, you need to take some Viagra. And it would be nice if we have the side skirts, the 6mm of side skirts to prevent high explosive shots. That would be nice. And the DShK machine gun. That's also good. But you can see the progression between the early models of the T-44 to the advanced version to the T-54. So this tank was so popular, it got the allies to be scared of it, to produce the stuff like the Patents, the Centurions, the Conquerors. Actually, not this tank, this IS-3. What am I talking about? But yeah, the Patents was designed to counter this tank, as well as the, I think it was the Centurion. Not the Centurion, the Chieftain. No, Chieftain's more for the IS-3. So basically, all Russian stuff, scary. So it's one of the most well-produced tanks in human history. 100,000 of them. Jesus. So many of them. And the Chinese copied it with their tanks and, you know, stuff. So thank you guys for watching this video, and hope you guys enjoyed it. So comment below on what you think about the T-54 model 1945, and rate this video if you can. That always help me out so I can tell if I suck, or comment on where I mispronounced or have some false info or misread something. So that's always a problem, but I tried my best. So thank you guys for watching. As always, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.